Let's talk about momentum. Momentum is the quality or experience of having energy flowing consistently already in a specific direction. The best thing to have, the worst thing to lose, the hardest thing to rebuild is momentum. One of the things that I use as leverage with people, because momentum does not exist out there outside of the artificial creation of a container or a community. The innate momentum, well, as Kevin Trudeau says, if you're not growing, you're dying. The innate momentum that most people have is a decline, is a forgetting, is a loss of whatever they've achieved. It's taken you maybe 30 years to develop a personality, an ego, a subconscious mind that orients you towards what's familiar, what's comfortable, what's easy. So in order to stay in and effective at the game of personal development, regardless of what area you are focused upon, it behooves you to do whatever it takes to maintain momentum, to keep the flow of energy, attention, time, effort, focused in a certain direction. Now, there are some times when, people come to my containers and they create epic results like 10K in a couple days or 20K in a few weeks. And then they leave, and then they're on this roller coaster for years. And I witness them, I interview them, I come back to them. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't been holding myself accountable for the habits and the mindsets and the actions that got me successful. It's often said, what got you here won't get you there. Well, what got you here often in the human animal is the will, the energy, the inspiration, the motivation, and sometimes the consternation, sometimes the exasperation of people who care enough about you to challenge you to go beyond what you would do if you were on your own. I have a friend, a former friend who was a coach, who used to say, yeah, if I didn't have a commitment that was so much bigger than me that it required me to step out of myself regularly, then I'd be drinking wine, eating Cheetos, watching Netflix. And really look for yourself, right? This is not a judgment on you. Where is your plateau at the lowest common denominator of your effort? This is what has been showing up, regardless of what container, community support you've been receiving. It's what's there when you fall to the bottom, right? And so that bottom will become your norm again unless you do whatever it takes to build structures, systems, accountability, support, blind spotting, blockbusting to prevent you from falling into the habit of being where you came from, like who you were before the inspiration, the upliftment, the transformation of the container, because transformation has a half-life. Transformation, it only lasts a certain amount of time because the momentum of personality is often stronger than whatever momentum you've built in your life, in your business, in your focus on whatever area you've committed to. Give you a great example. I've been working for 15 years on social dynamics. I started off a socially awkward, anxious, introverted, diagnosed with autism nerd who felt like super self-conscious going out in the world. And what I've noticed is there have been periods of extraordinary functioning and flow and skill and facility, followed by periods of fallow, not feeding the momentum of the skill itself. And there was a period of maybe 2 or 3 years where I built a certain kind of momentum by holding live events, Empowering Austin Now, that was different and better than previous years where I would do 3 months on and then months off, 6 months, 9 months on, months off. And so how do we maintain the change that we have brought about inside of ourselves? Now, one argument for momentum is that momentum is easier to sustain if you are practicing embodying and crystallizing the codes, the learnings, the transformation in yourself. But how do we do that? Well, for some people, they spend $10,000 on 10 body electronics sessions or all kinds of different embodiment work so that the shape of their personality becomes more fluid, more flexible, more agile, more easeful. And like, yeah, is it good that what is the eventual result, and I experienced this in Earthwaking, for example, my whole personality shifted in a direction that was useful to me, that felt good, that was aligned because of the presence of this every Tuesday night visionary leadership program call. And so for years, I was in this 12-week program 4 times a year, like every week. And it kept a certain channel of energy open inside of me. It kept a certain mode or frame of distinguishing easily, readily available to me. And I've noticed that there is a drift, there's a wandering off from the focus, from the point, from the consistency of that has arisen since the visionary program really turned into something different and the community sort of migrated into a completely different set of values and form than it had when I first was involved. But what I would often experience is I would take a week off and then I would quote unquote become an asshole. And I'd be like, I just don't like me when I'm not connected to the energy and the inspiration and the information that reforms or keeps my new shape in place. And you can look at working out, right? You spend all this time building muscles, but you're not going back to the gym. Well, those muscles will dwindle, diminish, dissipate, disappear. We don't want that. That's the point of momentum. That's why I'm here, for you to hear the distinction of momentum, so that you can understand why it's necessary to stay plugged in. Now, it's funny, in Earthwaking, they would say, all right, now you've got all this grace, all this transformation, all this possibility, stay plugged in. And one might argue, they might be like, well, wait a second, what am I plugged into? Am I plugged into just you and the ego that is leading this thing? Am I tethering myself to the willpower, inspiration, and energetic frequency level or range of the leader? And sometimes that's true. Egos follow bigger egos, but it's not bad or wrong. It is limited and it is limiting. You eventually want to do or create the cash flow to create the work inside of you to be more of a light, to be more aligned, to more easily, naturally, and effortlessly feel as if there's nothing that I can do but feed my vision and my purpose and my focus and my chief aim with clarity and determination and persistence. But for most people, they're not going to have $20,000 laying around to go work with Ronnie Landis or Tatiana Fontalvo or your local Rolfer or whatever. And by the way, I'm giving you the best of what I have that I know that can dramatically and permanently reshape and shift your identity so that you don't need to tether yourself to a community either. But we often do for others more than we would do for ourselves. We often do in the listening of others more than we would honor in terms of giving our word to ourselves. The very distinction of integrity relies upon, necessitates someone who is listening other than you, who gives a shit about what you do and whether it aligns to what you say you're going to do. So this, in short, like for me, I have an A-team of people who remember me at my best, who see through me when I think I'm at my worst, who hear me, who hold space for me, who provide grace to me. So barring a community where you're being professionally, like at a world-class level, through investment being held accountable, a team could be of support to you. But here's the thing, unless you have a circle that inspires you, you're the average of your 5 best friends in income, in inspiration, in motivation, in focus. And the people who you most want to be like, who do you listen to, are most likely going to protect, defend, and honor the value of their time, energy, effort, and attention through investment. And that's just the nature of this game, right? The more you pay, the more you will pay attention, the better quality of attention, and the more you will tune into the egregore, the energetic container of what you want to achieve with them. Have I managed to stay in the game of entrepreneurship through hanging out with successful entrepreneurs, even if I wasn't paying them? Yeah, to some degree. But they had to be more successful than me. Why? Because that would give me something to reach for, to aspire to be inspired by. It's like that scene in Inception where the guy comes next to him and says, "You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. Get your vision bigger." And marinating in, sort of steeping in the energy of a vision that is bigger than yours and a hope that is larger than yours for a purpose that is beyond you and your little life and your little goals, like 150K or something in the next year. Like, it's nutrition. It's nutrition for the soul. So, like, I'm looking at triage, though. My highest and best choice is in a container that challenges me with systems, clear track record of testimonials and achievements, which I'm in currently, removing the mask from the nervous system. I'm in a container like that. And I am investing energy and receiving powerful value for the work that I'm doing. And there's another container I invested in and got access to ongoingly because of that initial investment. And it's often uplifted me. Both of these have often uplifted me. So what I recommend is don't go dark, don't go silent, and don't go alone. It's a lot easier. There's an example. My friend, I'll call him Sam. That's not his actual name, but I saw him do a bunch of work in this container that I did. And it was a couple years later, and it was almost as if he hadn't done that work at all. He completely hallucinated away. When he told me he had done the landmark for him, I was like, this is a huge surprise to me because you do not sound like someone who has done the landmark for him at all. Don't become a victim of the negative intrinsic momentum of your personality, like the downflow, the decay, the diminishing, the dissipation, the fracturing and the fragmenting. One of the things that a container does is it continues to reactivate the context of your goals around you beyond what your subconscious would automatically do on your own. Unless you have a rigorous, relentless practice of specifically and religiously feeding your vision daily. That's another way to sustain momentum over 2, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. I've had a project that I've been focused on recurringly that I reactivate through speaking and commitment and intention once every single week. And it's been that way since March of 2025. And this commitment has in turn fed all of my other commitments. It's opened me up to more possibility. So you always want to have a longer term vision that you're feeding regularly. Feed your vision until your vision feeds you. And that can generate momentum. And in summary, what have I given you that can generate momentum? Well, the base bottom level is vision. The next is embodiment, through embodiment work to clean up and clear out your system so it's easier to stay focused on and be unconsciously competent with bringing in what you desire. Like, it requires less effort, less energy at unconscious competence than it does at conscious competence. At conscious competence, you're like, let me stay focused long enough, strong enough to manifest this thing. Unconscious competence, things happen by magic. And you're just like, I choose and it would be cool for me to receive and enjoy this thing in this way, easily, today. Then you let it go completely and it shows up on its own time without you having to continually, consistently, obsessively, and absurdly feed it, right? The next level is community, or ideally a coach. A coach is a one-man community and a one-man army surrounding you and supporting you. And what that does is you're overlighted, you're able to be pulled out of yourself when you fall back in to the old patterns, the old focus, the lack of focus, the, hey, I'm gonna go have fun for 20 days in a different country, even though it has nothing to do with my chief aim. Like, all right, you have every right at any time to go have fun. I do it too. Go party like a rock star, but don't let it wipe the slate clean of what you're committed to, of what you're fighting for, of what you're aiming at. I've only got a little bit of time left, so I choose to say my highest, like, can you feel that we've generated some momentum in this video, maybe in a container that we're working in? maybe in your exposure to or experience of the content I've delivered to you over the days, months, years that you've known me. Well, here's the thing. My ethical obligation as a coach is not to spit in the face of that momentum at the lowest level. My ethical obligation is to do whatever I can in my power that is still ethical to motivate and inspire you to opt in for you, to choose you again, to recommit. And in the physical universe, we occupy the greatest form of commitment that we possess is money, financial capacity for investment. So then what I would recommend is, even if it's not me, find a container where you are absolutely seen, heard, felt, loved, supported, challenged, provoked into your highest expression, and invest into that container and keep investing. If I had stopped investing, I'd be broke, ignorant, philosophy student asshole, barely getting by, trapped in my mind, suffering from a life that is far less than the one that I live that I love. So don't fall into that trap. I love you. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful, amazing day, and keep the momentum. Whatever you can do to feed the momentum so that it feeds you.